We're going to discuss how blockchain will transform the global economy. We'll explore the borderless nature, and we'll set some ideas, hopefully, to help you imagine what that ecosystem would look like. My name is Robin deLisser. I own a recruiting firm named Empower Resources. We are building blockchain and creating a new division named Smart Recruiting, Smart Contracts, Smart Recruiting, right? Which I can talk about later. But I've been in South Florida for a tech and executive recruiter in South Florida for 20 years, and I've been deeply immersed in the blockchain crypto community for the last 2 years. I traveled around the conference circuit and I spoke, and I met, picked out who I thought were the most interesting players, and I created something that I call the Inner Circle, and we all keep in touch with each other, and it's created kind of a little ecosystem. So with that, I'd like to allow everybody to introduce themselves. In 2 or 3 sentences, can you give us a little background? Okay, maybe 4. Maybe 4. A little bit of background about your, or overview of your background, rather.
Yes, my name is Nayib Kiuhan. I'm one of the co-founders of FluidChains. I've been part of the ExO network, working a lot with exponentiality technologies, and one of them is blockchain, where we applied and help a small, medium business to grow in a way that we can.
Hi, you guys, probably most of you already know me, but I'm Eryka Gemma. I am CEO of the Bitcoin Center Miami, co-founder of this wonderful blockchain center that you guys are in today. My background is kind of in traditional finance and aircraft leasing. Really got a passion for Bitcoin and blockchain and just the transparency behind it and what it's going to do for the future, specifically for, you know, my generation that's kind of looking at the financial system today and wondering what options do we have. So focused on building here in Miami. We have a huge opportunity to make this a tech hub, and with the work of everyone here, there's no doubt in my mind that it's going to happen.
Hello. So again, my name is Policarpo, and I am in charge of the international outreach for Rutanio. That's my official position, and I am a founder of FluidChains. As I said, I've been working in developing different projects for the past 5 years, and my passion in all this at this point is to do things that are really going to make a difference, that are going to transform the world. I already did the bazaar thing, the shit coins, good coins, and now let's do something big.
Very good. Thank you. So go address this question to each of our panelists. Why do we need a global transformation economy? Nayib?
More than that is at this moment, we are living in a different era, in a digital era, where we have digital government, we have new and emerging technologies, and then we are living in a different space that we were living, and definitely we need a transformation that use all the technologies where we are living right now.
To accomplish what?
To accomplish, of course, a big transformation, and one of those one is in our DNA, that hopefully is in an exponential way, because we have a lot of these technologies that really help us to exponential the growth.
I would say that it's not even that we need a digital transformation economy. I would say that it's going to happen, right? And so us being people that are forward thinking, it's smart for us to get on the front leading edge of that. And I would say that this is just going to happen because, Moore's law shows that technology increases over time at an exponential rate. So I think that there's a lot of technologies that are already developed that maybe have not been allowed to see the day of light because they disrupt a lot of what is currently making people in power money. But I think that now with blockchain, it answers a lot of questions, specifically when it comes to transparency. So it makes me excited because in one sense, when you see all the technologies that are coming up, it kind of is scary, right? Because you're like, okay, wow, like these people that have control now have more control. But when you have you add it with the transparency that Bitcoin and blockchain provide, it makes me rest a little bit easier. So not that we need one, but it's definitely going to happen, and we should get ahead of the curve.
I think that when we talk about global transformation, it's kind of tricky. Some people don't like globalization. So there is this thought that is bad for some reason. But when you're working with technology and when you're working with different countries, you start finding out that there are peculiarities, there are talents, that not everybody is aware of them. They don't necessarily know how to sell them. And that's why we need new tools, new approaches, new possibilities for those people to have access to the global markets where they can really get the best value for their talents. That's one thing.
So certainly in third world countries or non-developed countries, we see the use case more prominently, but even here in the United States, like what's the US dollar backed by? I think most people don't understand what the US dollar is backed by. Like what is it actually backed by today?
Full faith and credit of the US government and army. Of course.
Is it backed by gold? No. Okay. All right. So at least we agree on that. Okay. And so when we talk about this transformation and this new economy, why is blockchain so important to that? And what's it going to add to it?
I think one of the important things is again, go back to the disruption, is disruption of the traditional power. That the traditional power has been, centralized. Then is always the other way, is disrupt that. That's the reason that the centralized powers not like it too much blockchain, but that's the way to go, is distributor the power and not controlling entities is the way that I see it.
All right, guys. So this is why we need blockchain. I'm specifically going to talk about what I think is the most important blockchain that actually has a, time-stamped, proven record of its success, and that's going to be the Bitcoin blockchain. I think that everybody comes to agreement when they say that our government and governments get corrupt, right? They start out with good intentions, but over time they do become corrupt. I think one of the things specifically in the United States that has made that happen is because of the control of the flow of money. We used to be backed by gold, now we're not. Now we have a Federal Reserve that gets to print, but we have no insight as to where that money is distributed to first, whose hands is it touching, who is the one that is getting the benefits of everybody else's dollars depreciating, right? So there's just no visibility on the back end as to what's currently happening, and I think that with the Bitcoin blockchain, because you have a public record that everyone can see updated in real time, you're gonna see people that they want to remain anonymous, but they also have a level of transparency as to where money is moving that we've never seen before.
And because I feel like fighting and making everybody in the room hate me, I would argue that the only real Bitcoin is BSV, so.
Let the best chain win. I have no preference. I just think that when I think that I'm a really big believer in not shutting down other ideas, right? So it's sometimes it's the fact that the community will immediately shut down BSV. I don't like that. It's the best technology will rise to the top at the end of the day. They don't need everyone to push it. But also, I do also think that a lot of these tokens that are being pushed, they don't have decentralization. If your token is not decentralized, then you don't have security. You might as well use a database. So just as long as something is decentralized, I feel like that is the big sell of a blockchain.
And what is decentralized in that context?
So I would say the amount of people that can contribute to saying that a transaction that makes it on the record is correct. So
right. So if a core group of developers could control that, then it would be centralized, not decentralized, right?
I would say that if you have mining power that's saying that this is correct or incorrect, and you have miners that are distributed all over the world, and that is decentralized.
Well, that's the overarching theory, but I won't take off the panel for this, but we'll discuss that later.
Okay.
Polly?
Thinking here, I totally agree with you that we need blockchain because of transparency and all those good things we get from it. But most important, what I like the most is that we are creating a more mature society with the help of blockchain and with the help of these cryptocurrencies. First of all, you are learning about money because we were never taught about money. We are learning to protect our money. We are not giving our right to protect or the expectation of protection to a bank or a third party. And we are being able to get others accountable for what happens with the funds that they are
Triple ledger
having
system.
on the custody. So I think overall, yes, we need something like this to check the old paradigms, if you will.
All right, let's move on to tokenization specifically. How will tokenization impact society and transform the way that we conduct business?
I would say the biggest way that tokenization will transform society is and this is a hope, right? Because the reason, the hope is that average people will be able to participate in right now what only accredited investors can participate in. Now, this is the hope. Now, if the SEC, if these people get all up in it, then we might just end up with the same system, but a little bit more high-tech background. However, that would be in the United States. You have people internationally that now can be able to participate in the global economy who couldn't beforehand. So.
Who wants to go next? Nayib?
Okay, yeah, I think new business and new organization models is going to be something, and what she says, fractional ownership is a hub, and it's a hub on participation. Is no matter right now the models is you need to be big just to be participant in all those. Right now, no matter where you are, with the decentralization that is providing the trust, you can participate even in a minimal part. That is, again, I hope that is not hope, that is going to be a reality.
Right. Create sovereign freedom for anybody, an 11-year-old refugee in Syria, right? Absolutely. And so I'm not going to bring this up to propagate my company, but the reason I got interested in it is I think I see smart contracts changing the way that we conduct business around the world eventually, like on a massive scale. Because if you think about it now, like in my business model, I make an agreement with an executive. They say, hire so-and-so, and we agree on a rate. And then that gets documented in a legal contract, right? And then maybe a lawyer sees it or whatever, but we put this legal contract together, right? And then I go recruit the person. It takes however long to find the person. I put them to work, and I invoice the day that they go to work. Could be 30 days, could be 120 if you're as big as like a Motorola, right? Or if you're in South Florida and you have a lot of zero-sum transient companies that don't care about paying their bills, maybe you never get paid, right? So if we have a system where I can implement an automatic, if we have a system where I can create a software contract and we have a subscription model that automatically every single month or whatever your payment term is, that company pays my company from their wallet to my wallet, I just became my own bank. We're not worrying about paper contracts. We're not worrying about invoicing, collection calls, any of that stuff. So it's a little off the subject of tokenization per se, although it's still cryptocurrency, right? But I see that being one of the biggest changes in businesses and how they get conducted long term, because of course that streamlines and creates such great efficiency. And plus, then you're not beholden to a bank to cash those checks or use only their bank card or credit card, right? So.
I mean, that's a really good point, Robin, just in terms of efficiency, because we do have, fractional ownership of a company is something that already exists. But if you look into the way that happens on the back end, I think that technology is probably from the early 90s. It's about time that it gets upgraded. There is a problem they call the Dole Foods problem, if you guys know what this is. Anybody want to take a shot at it?
No, go ahead.
Essentially, in more words than less, there were more shares that were trading for Dole Foods on the open market than actually even existed. And so it wasn't really that there were people doing anything malicious. It was just that the technology was old and it's time for an upgrade. And so this is what we hope that hopefully we will see tokenization do, create secondary markets for assets that otherwise don't have secondary markets. And then just do it more efficiently than the system we have right now.
So one of the companies I'm supporting predominantly right now is a fintech company out of the Bay Area, and recruiting for this company, they won't even look at candidates that came from traditional financial services or banking because the technology is antiquated, their processes are antiquated, and they can't keep up with a fast-paced, innovative company like a fintech. So it just adds to your point, I think. Okay, so we kind of touched on this earlier, but let's go back to it. Many people in the United States don't understand the need for crypto because our currency here is relatively stable. However, in Latin America and other countries, there's real use case for it, right? So Miami is the door to Latin America. Do you think that we have a real opportunity to make this a crypto capital of the Americas, as much of the community is trying to push to do?
No.
Okay.
Well, no, that's what we're doing today. That's what we're building, and with your help and the participation of all here, definitely we are going to achieve it. But it's not as easy as you would expect. I think, and it always was my vision, even when I was doing the mobile development thing in Latin America, in general, I decided to go first to Latin America, test things there, because there is less regulation, less blocks, and
More corruption.
and then you can come to this market, a more mature market, with a better proposal, a better thought of process, and then you can be competitive and have a shot of success.
Ajib?
Yes, I think it's an excellent opportunity, not only for Latin America, but some countries. The lack of trust is something that is, we hope that blockchain is going to resolve and help to, put more trust into the people and remove more powerful and trust on those entities and government. I think is an excellent idea. Some countries, they already start to do it, and they come and, hey, Miami is right the corner. A lot of people that live here have some influence in those countries, and the idea is like all of us here is help us to promote it and speed up that process that it may take some time.
I would say absolutely Miami has a chance to become the crypto capital of the Americas. I think that every city in the United States right now has something that they're known for. Miami is kind of known for like babes and for beaches, but we want to be known for babes and beaches.
And ports. We have the ports.
Oh yeah, forgot about this. But even our ports, I mean, just some really interesting projects that are happening here. The Port of Miami, the Miami Airport, and the Beacon Council are working together to make our ports smart. The Blockchain Center is a part of that, right? The Blockchain Center is working with the Miami-Dade public school system, and we've implemented blockchain education into the 4th grade curriculum. And this is county-wide. Also, in terms of a physical location, there is a reason why Nick Spanos chose to open the Bitcoin Center in Miami versus anywhere else, right? I mean, I know you guys, I had told you yesterday, but the city of Miami officially declared this week, January 13th to 20th as Miami Blockchain Week. I mean, there's an official declaration every year. That's awesome, right? Last night we had the Miami Downtown Development Authority here. They're actually sponsoring a job fair for us. Right now, too, if you look at what's happening in this downtown area, right now, everybody knows Brickell. Brickell's beautiful, second most international banks in the United States. That's also another reason why it could work here. But when we look at what's happening here in actual downtown Miami, the best way I can say it is there's really nowhere to go but up, okay? And the people that are trying to push it up are trying to make this a millennial tech hub area. So if everybody in this room is in consensus that blockchain is going to be the next internet, then we know that in this millennial tech hub, a major technology that's going to be taking place here is going to be using blockchain. So just the fact that we kind of are in a perfect storm. I mean, Florida, out of all the states right now, the largest migration of people and of talent is moving to Florida. Huge brain drain from New York. They can't stand the weather or the taxes. Same in California, same in San Francisco. So Miami is a viable city. And I think that when you look at that, we have no state income tax. We have a local government that's very, very supportive. When you look on a state level as well, I mean, some people from the Blockchain Center, last February, we had gone to Tallahassee to lobby for a blockchain bill to be passed. A bunch of us went up there, we talked to our senators, we talked to our representatives. Across the board, unanimously, this blockchain bill passed. Nobody voted no on it. That's unheard of. It passed, and guess what? The mayor of Miami is now on this thing called the Blockchain Task Force. So I think that, you know, we are definitely in a perfect storm here, specifically in the Blockchain Center building. We have a lot of support from the city. And, you know, just to back it all up, it's not just that we've been trying this for the last, 6 months, however long we've been open. It's that Miami is already the Silicon Valley of Latin America, right? There's a huge joke that says, what's the best city in Latin America to do business in? And people say Miami. Or people say like, oh, I love to go to Miami because it's so close to the United States. I mean, this is already running jokes that have been going on for a while, and I think we're just in the perfect storm here. So if there's any city that would be the blockchain capital of the world or of the Americas in the United States, it's only Miami.
Yeah, I would add, I agree with everything that you said. I would add that we also have opportunity zones in Miami. So you have tax incentives for investors, and then you have very favorable tax laws for businesses to move into the area as well, all throughout the state of Florida.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So based on what we've seen so far, what do each of you envision for the future? Where can we go?
You guys should move to Miami. Set up your companies here. We'll help you out. We can, you can move in here. We can get you some good real estate in the area and just be a part of the wave. I also think that, there's a lot of different industries that are going to be disrupted by blockchain technology, and we should really keep our eyes on banking first.
Yeah, what I was thinking, just to add to that, is that it doesn't take us that long that it took us with the internet. I think we are right now, with the benefit of new technologies, that the adoption of blockchain is just to the mass. It go faster, and I think it's a reality, and I think it's going to happen. But it's still work to do.
Would you go ahead and give the example of some of the stuff you guys are doing in Medellin? I know people in the room probably heard it, but people that are watching live stream or watching this video later, I think it's a very interesting use case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what we are doing is what we are doing with ExO right now is more on a global basis. With Rutanio is local economy, and we are working with many entities, and it's something that is important to highlight is Medellin is one of the most innovative cities on Latin America, and to highlight, it was named or included on the 4 Industrial Revolution City, known that the other 4 or 5 cities in that group is already developed countries. And the idea is how to duplicate this initiative on developing countries in some other developing countries. That is super important, because now the vision is just to close that gap between developing countries and developed countries. And Medellin is a good example. It has been more than 10 years to be labeled as that city that you cannot visit anymore. And this is something that is receiving all the support from the local government. That is all the push on innovation. Medellin creates an entity with local money from the government. For every kilowatt that the city consumes is a certain amount of money that it go only for the innovation. That's the business model that is being used, and then is something that it can adopt for many other cities too.
If I heard you correctly, they get a token that has money issued to it from the government.
Not precisely.
No, okay.
What I want to just be clear is is something, that entity that is called Rutanio, that Rutanio funds is funded by the electricity that everybody consumes in the city. Means for every kilowatt that the city consumes, the government, the local government owns the electricity company, the power company, and then is one X amount of money is for that particular entity that is called Rutanio, and Rutanio is only focused in innovation. And it has been 10 years focused on innovation, means It does not depend only on some funding from some place. It's already funded to create new projects, and those projects is what it has been pushing a lot the city into all of these new innovation process.
Okay, so I'm going to make sure I understood you this time. So the company is given a certain amount of money back from the local government for reducing their use of non-sustainable energy.
Not only, no, it's not
Darn it.
only for the specific, you are mentioning a specific project. No, I don't want to be specific. It's all related to innovation. Innovation is not only for that.
Right.
And this is any kind of energy that it come. I don't want to see that it's only renewable energy.
Okay.
It's any kind of power they add into that business too, but it's more about the power that is consumed by the people. You know, people pay X amount of money, then X amount of that money go to fund innovation for the city. And then that's part of the Rutanio project this is Rutanio is articulated by that, and then this is part like, okay, we need to do something not only in blockchain. They are doing projects with IoT, there are projects with AI. That's part of the innovation. And then, okay, let's just do testing. Let's see how we're going to go with project like a blockchain, and then Rutanio is one of them.
So your question was about the future, right?
Yeah.
What we see in the future. I would like to see a smart city powered by a blockchain or blockchain technologies. The only block I see today is legislation, is clarity and certainty on what to expect as an investor, as a developer, and as an entrepreneur, bringing that type of experiences to Miami. I think that once we have that clear, then all the rest will fall in place. So, and as we move, bringing this type of projects and getting the community and the work that the Blockchain Center is doing with the local authorities, showing them that blockchain is not an enemy of the system or nothing like that, then we'll be eventually moving to remove those blocks and then allowing for the growth of this technology.
So before we wrap up, I'll go ahead and open the floor to any questions that the audience may have. Don't all jump at once. You want to come up and we'll hand you a microphone?
Thank you, Polly. Well, in this hypothetical situation, let's say that I am a freelancer from an interior design, and I know nothing about technical issues, but I am futurist. I like to read a lot, and I found out about those marketplaces, and I think, oh, that's so cool to offer my services. So my question is, what I should expect from a marketplace to offer me as a freelance? How do I trust them? Which are the risks involved for me? And which is the support I should expect from one of these marketplaces?
Okay, I'll take the first stab at the recruiter. So we live in this world that's creating more gig economy now, right? So if you take examples of these websites that have created the gig and produced or helped people like yourself that are freelancers, you could think of it as that application could be on the blockchain. When they bid and make their decisions, it's executed through the blockchain, and it's executed through smart contracts. So your payment is guaranteed, right? Things like that. Your work could be validated through the blockchain, and it's immutable. So then once it's verified, it's going to forever remain on the blockchain. Those are some of the things I would see. And it's going to depend on different companies providing those different applications, right? But those are some of the things that jump out when you ask the question, and we can certainly let anybody else answer.
What I see in both marketplaces is, and I will go very specific in ExO's, one of the biggest values is the community is quite spread, and even transfer value means fiat from small city to another person that is doing a job. I would say 30 to 40% of the cost was in the transaction. We have very specific, cases. Someone do a job in Colombia for someone in Switzerland, and the middle banks were getting $80 on each side. Then that's one right now is no middleman. Is a blockchain entity or blockchain that is doing the transaction at minimal fee. Minimal is almost zero. And now it's not that middleman that is the banks on both sides that is taking that. On the case of Rutanio, I see it in pretty much in the same line, but I think is a community that it has talent resources that is being exported to a bigger community with those needs and a very competitive prices and a good time zone, and it let that interchange to happen and in both sides. One that is looking for an opportunity to get a job done, and the one that is looking for to provide that service.
Dr. Craig Wright always says you should get paid for the work that you do, right? The true value versus the middleman taking such a huge piece of it. He gave a great example of Google the other day that if instead of, and these are microtransactions, right? Instead of Google and Facebook and Twitter having your information, right? And then they profit off of selling your information, right? What if you profited off of your information and you got paid for the content that you provided or whatever work that you provide, right? It's greatly eliminating it. And he gave, I'm not going to remember the estimate, but I want to say that if Google changed their parameters and let people operate under that other model, their profit would be like 80-fold what it is today. So you think of microtransactions, like in my business, I could take micro payments or much lower payments than what I normally do, right? But if it serves a greater good and I'm able to do more volume, and obviously then those micro payments are actually more rewarding for me, right?
I would say, because you're referring to a marketplace, are you specifically referring to the FluidChains marketplace? No.
No, I would like to join marketplaces because I see that is a cool way to offer my services, but I don't know really which marketplace should I join, which offer me what I need, which should I trust, mostly that, and what is the support I would like to have from them.
Yeah, I would say I don't personally have experience with marketplaces, but I do know that public blockchains like Bitcoin, they make a new marketplace that makes it so that way, let's say you are a freelancer and you're selling your services, you're now able to touch people in other countries without having to worry about capital controls in that sense. And also too, I mean, you put a smart contract on top of your services, and that way you're not having to worry about getting paid out. It would be where you do what you need to do and automatically you get paid, right? So it's just, like as Robin said earlier, efficiencies that we add. And another thing that's cool too, in a public blockchain setting, which is not a marketplace, but it's a new marketplace that's coming, is that you have the ability to now move globally and keep your wealth intact versus having to keep it in the currency of the country that you're domiciled in.
Yes, I have some experience with cryptocurrency marketplaces like Open Bazaar. And one of the options you have is to build escrow systems pre-programmed within the platform that allow you to receive payments once the task has been completed. This goes together with a vetted community. So not everyone, probably at this stage, not everyone can just freely participate and you can guarantee that they are going to play by the rules. So again, you need some sort of an initial arbiter that is going to say, okay, you can play, you cannot play, you're playing good, you are not playing good. And once all the players are playing the same game, then you can remove that figure and let the code take over. So those experiences exist, and I think they are a good alternative, at least for you.
So I would also say that in the crypto blockchain world, there's different companies coming out with different applications all the time, which is kind of what I was going with earlier. So you'd have to look at what applications are out there, think about, take it backwards and say, okay, what's going to grow my business? What's going to make it more profitable or streamline it, make it more efficient, whatever, right? And then seek out those companies that are providing those types of applications, and then do your own research as to whether or not they're stable and legit and going to be around in a year or not.
Great, thank you.
Next up.
Oh, you have another.
Well, speaking of legitimacy and changing and technology changing, I have some tokens from some wallets that, the wallet's changed, and, how do you stay on top of this stuff? I basically lost some tokens. Is there a value in creating some sort of insurance where like every transaction goes to a third-party escrow that can say, let's say they stole my tokens, right? Or X or Y, right? Is there some sort of...
Wouldn't that kind of be the antithesis of what Bitcoin is designed to do?
Now, for consumers, for regular consumers, I get what you're saying. Yeah, this is against the law, but
So I hate to keep talking about it, but it gives a perfect example. I was at a conference in Vegas or LA. In the future, you won't use banks. You know what you'll use banks for? To hold a fraction of your key. So that one bank has this, one bank has this. If you're watching the Craig Wright case, if anybody's watching it here in Palm Beach County, one of the big cruxes of it has been that they had the scheme, what's it called? I can't think of the name of it. But it's basically exactly that. So they, theoretically, he's Satoshi and the other people that helped him create Bitcoin, divided these keys into a trust, and they were then distributed between different people, and then bonded. They're supposed to be delivered by bonded couriers at certain dates because they wanted the market to have enough time to develop and for the Bitcoin to actually grow and companies to start developing in it and for it to start getting used, right? So again, I'm not trying to sell you guys on Craig. What I'm saying is if you think about it in a way, could there be a system that, yeah, you have pieces of your keys stored in different locations? You never want any one entity holding your key all together, like the whole key, right? Just like you don't want to sit anywhere digitally, right? I mean, that would be the antithesis of...
Well, I'm not saying a bank. What I'm saying is some sort of insurance company where you choose, you have the option of saying, hey, I have $1 million in tokens, for every transaction that I play, I want to have this third-party insurance company that ensures that they don't steal my tokens or X or Y. Because in the future, I mean, you're talking about, in the future, we're all going to have these shared currencies. In the future, quantum tech is going to override this entire...
I don't believe we'll have shared currency. I personally believe we'll have one digital currency that's used predominantly around the world.
Using encryption keys?
Before I die, but at least definitely before the time my children die.
Using encryption keys?
And I'm not even supporting that whole bank theory. I just thought it was a very interesting idea. And then if you think about the scheme under it, right?
And also too, just on the point of quantum, I mean, if let's say that Moore's law is real, right? Quantum computing is growing, and Google said that they did something that I don't really believe that they did, and neither do many legacy educational institutions.
It'd be a classical problem using quantum tech, yes.
But also, I mean, if you look at encryption isn't staying stagnant. Encryption is also advancing. So you can't, it's not, quantum grows and encryption stays the same. So you're going to see a balance.
And I have seen companies, whether they have actually come into production or not is questionable. I haven't followed them, but I've certainly met companies and people that said that they were working on exactly what you're describing. So I would do some research on that. There might be some out there already, but certainly the thought is out there in the community.
There are some quantum-proof encryptions, but none of them are being used on blockchain. I mean, maybe there's one or two companies that is thinking about it, but most companies aren't thinking about that issue.
But they are thinking about the insurance and how to be able to back you and.
For me, the interesting part is for the regular consumer, right? Because the regular consumer doesn't want to have $1,000 that has disappeared because he didn't change his wallet, or he didn't, or he got his password was cat, and somebody was able to, like they've been doing with Ethereum, right? Like you put an easy password and they go.
Or some guy on crypto the other day that he wrote down the passcode for his wife, put this some really secure where you never forget it, so she put it on the fridge.
So how do you help the consumer to make this a play where people are actually getting into this? Because right now, it's very few people who are doing it, and the people who are, most of them are coming out like, man, this stuff is dropped in value. I have to worry about, stuff that's, at one point was worth $1,000, let's say. Now it's worth pennies, and I have to change the wallet, and I have to worry about my encryption. And it's like, I don't even want to worry about the hassle.
It's a nascent industry. This is going to continue to happen as we develop and we evolve, right? Until we hit Moore's Law, which in my opinion, Moore's Law is when we hit the majority of the world using some type of peer-to-peer electronic cash system, right? But yeah, it's a problem. Exchanges are these wallets that go, all this stuff and all your money's gone, right? Come on. So we have to just keep aware and do your research and keep educated. Right.
So I would say one message that cryptocurrency brings that really needs to be reiterated is this idea of personal accountability, right? your seed phrase is 12 to 14 words. Remember that shit, you know? Like, that's all I can say. And
Distribute it.
or you know, there's a lot of simple ways that you can do that. Tell your mom half. Tell your brother the other half. If something happens to you, you come together. I mean, these are very basic ways that will happen. But as Robin said, it's a nascent industry. With time, these issues will be addressed. There are companies specifically that were even here today that are working on that. But right now, you know, people get to be lazy because we have what is it, $250,000 FDIC insured that your government fiat money will be refunded. When if you really know how the banking system works, they're not going to refund you $250,000. They're not. It's
Not exactly what Bitcoin was designed to do. Like, I think I can think for myself and figure out where to invest my money and where to store my money. I don't need a bank to tell me. I don't need an investor. Like, right? I mean, really.
So there are people that do. I mean, there's a reason the banking system exists and it's been so popular. But in another sense, there are people, and the people who really built this technology, there are people like myself who are like, you know, I might lose my money, but I'd rather have me lose my money than you lose my money, you know?
Drop the mic. All right, who's next?
Hey guys, thank you for the presentation. I had a question about, I'm from Colombia as well, so cryptocurrencies are very common in Colombia more than the US, almost 20%. Turkey's number one. And I see the implementation of cryptocurrencies or people knowing about cryptocurrency very slow, like at 5% compared to other countries in Colombia. Is it being kind of influenced by the inflation and corruption? So my question is, like, how can we get the cryptocurrencies to be implemented or be known faster in the US versus, I guess, just seeing other countries and we're just moving at such a slow rate versus other countries?
I'm just going to say, to be honest, like, I actually don't even want the United States to get ahead of the game because I think we have a lot of wealth already, and I think it would be really cool to see, you know, a little equalizer between countries that maybe need it from a needs basis. I think that's why I also am a huge fan of Miami, because there's a Latin American culture here, even though we are in the United States. But I think that I don't mind if US is one of the last adopters in here. I would rather see the countries that, you know, that there's this example, right? In Latin America, they never got phone lines because they immediately jumped to cell phones. They never needed to lay down the ground. And I think you're gonna see that happen. And when you have a lot of Americans who are like, oh, it's a scam, it's because they have a relatively stable currency and they need to get out of their worldview anyway. So if they miss the boat, like, I'm okay with that.
I would also say you're doing it, right? Simply coming to these meetups, having these conversations, right? You're part of it right now, right? You're changing the future. Also, I mean, who are the first central banks that are going to develop their own digital cash system based off fiat, right? I mean, when this starts happening, then a lot of people are going to wake up. Libra, you know, as much as I think it's a shit thing, like, it was at least good in the sense that it would be opening massive amount of eyes, right? So if central banks start, right, we've had a top Federal Reserve official say that digitizing our fiat here in America is inevitable. China's currently working on it fast and furious. They just changed legislation last week. So those types of things, you know, start waking people up. Like, now everybody's heard about Bitcoin almost. Like, your grandma's heard about Bitcoin, right? So they may not understand it. They may not be so quick to jump and use it. But all of these things add up until we evolve, and then hit Moore's Law, like Eryka has referenced.
So I'm from New York. I've lived in San Francisco. I actually agree with Eryka about Miami. But I don't believe we should ever store private keys with a bank. I think the Winklevoss twins have a horrible system. And the reason why is because when I booked this event through my Wells Fargo account, they locked me out of my own bank account. And
Why the hell are you still with Wells Fargo? First of all, let's start there.
That's a good question, and it's a long story.
Go ahead. Now tell us the story, though.
Ago.
This is interesting.
But basically, to get back my account, I had to, first of all, hack my own account. I had to email some congressional members and Warren Buffett and some other stuff to get my account back. So I don't believe we should do that. And I think in South America, there's a particular problem where they don't have trust for the banks and for the government, and their currencies are collapsing, especially in Venezuela. So I guess my question is, what specific initiatives are helping people in South America, particularly Venezuela, to basically be their own bank?
Maduro and what he's doing, I think that's the biggest seller for Bitcoin.
Well, for those of us that don't know, you got to expand upon that.
So we have, Venezuela is a complicated topic. I mean, the concept of cryptocurrency is great that they are bringing it into the scene, that they are teaching people to use it. That's beautiful. However, I think we all agree here that the Petro is the biggest fraud ever in crypto. I will say it's worse than BitConnect. Honestly, it's a thing that there is no block explorer, that they probably minted 1 trillion petros, and what they parse as the blockchain is missing blocks, so you don't know where those funds went and where. So, I mean, you cannot build a real economy on that. Other than that, the fact that people are using wallets, that they are learning about public and private keys, that they are, they are even doing trading, because the only way of changing that they call a crypto into bolivares is via some trading platform they created for this. So people are also getting the first taste of that. So from that point of view, it's good. Eventually it's going to work against them, because then when things settle down and they are out of the picture, this will stay. So I think it's a positive overall compared to others.
And I would use, I can't give you any examples off the top of my head, but I would use the analogy of Netscape and Alta Vista, right? Does anybody ever use Alta Vista or Netscape anymore? No, they don't exist, but we all use Google or Chrome or Brave or whatever, right? Any other questions from the audience? No? All right, so I guess did anybody see that Toyota's building a smart city? Came out this week. Toyota is building a smart city. And one in Japan, they're a factory site that I guess is no longer being used. They're turning it into this whole smart city. And I don't know if they have any plans for blockchain or cryptocurrency, but I thought really cool. They're using it to learn with the, what's it called, LiDAR and self-driving cars and like test out all these new cars. So I can imagine if it's going to be a smart city, they're probably going to use blockchain and crypto in some way too. Pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the final thing I'll leave everybody with is I'll ask each of our panelists, what's the greatest takeaway or thing that you would like to leave our audience with today?
I think we covered a lot of things. Like the questions, I really appreciate them. If there was one big takeaway that I would want everyone to leave with, it's this idea that we have been a little bit programmed to be fearful of holding our own stuff and being accountable for our own things, and just to not be, because the thing about blockchain, and you kind of touched on this too, but with just because it's not held in a bank is, we don't know who these people are, most of them, right? We don't know who's behind the scenes. There are people that could make mistakes on the back end because they're actually being malicious, or because they genuinely just made a mistake. So there's a new technology that's making it so we don't have to trust these third parties, and it's not like it's a new technology that's making for new human behavior. It's actually reverting us back to what we used to have before things were centralized into third parties. So know that the human brain has been here before, and we can do it again.
I think the effort, most of us work in multiple projects, related or not with blockchain, but I think one of the important things beyond the blockchain is the community. I think all of these projects are where they are is because the community. Building the communities for us is to be the highest priority. We are doing it. We are learning in a hard way that must be the central. And at the end, even with blockchain, don't forget that we are all humans, and I say that because blockchain, the communities, and all of us are facing right now I would say, the third person that is the regulator. And the regulator now is a human person that is facing the fear not to do it or to do it. Then it's just to try to establish that, okay, at one moment or the other one, those regulators are going to do the best for everyone. And then it's here the communities that we may change that one too, or at least to challenge as a community for a better way for the community itself.
And my final word on this is that we are building real use cases, and many people are building real use cases using blockchain technology. So it's not just what you are used to see, again, on the trading boards. It's not just the traditional and silly Twitter market pump and dump and all that. There are serious projects, serious ambitions, serious vision, and as we said at the beginning, what we want is to do is to transform the world and using the best technologies available. Okay, thank you.
All right, so mine is cryptocurrency, Bitcoin specifically, will be the most radical revolution in human history. I do believe that we will have one digital currency used predominantly around the world, maybe by the time I die, but definitely by the time my children die. And I definitely believe that Bitcoin BSV is the only real Bitcoin that is decentralized. It will prevent fraud, zero-sum games and businesses, and it allows for it does not allow for anonymity. It allows for accountability, right? So one of the first things that Craig Wright said that we'll see happen is the central banks will create a digital currency based off their fiat, right? Well, hello. Nice of you to join us. So we're starting to see those central banks. So I think the first phase of it, well, the banks, the financial institutions, which, by the way, were busy filing the most patents in the world while they were saying that it was BS, right? Financial institutions, banks, central governments central reserves will start digitizing and creating currencies, right? And really build and evolve on the blockchain. And then eventually we'll hit Moore's Law and a majority of the world will start using it, and it won't be, and the regulators will work along with us trying to understand how to navigate these uncharted waters, right? And the regulators will come out with their laws and their policies and whatever, and we'll try and abide by them, right? And eventually when it hits Moore's Law, it's no longer controllable. You have a digital currency that that is borderless, cannot be controlled by one government, not one political party. It creates economic opportunity for everyone in the world, and it creates sovereign freedom. And I think that that's what's the most profound thing about this new transformation economy that we're going into.
Awesome.
Thank you all for coming today.
Thanks, you guys.